Good morning, everyone. Hold on, let me turn the music a little bit down. Hey, there we go. How's everyone doing today? Been a nice Sunday. Insert grooving cat gif. Slept until now. Oh, so it's basically sort of the same plan that I had for today. I think I woken up like half an hour ago. I enjoy it working way too late. Especially in the weekends. And then I'll have to quickly adjust to the week again. Yeah, been doing good so far. Been prepping some of the images. I'm gonna try to do I'm gonna try something else. Well, something it's only a slight change, really. Like last couple of times we've been using a program where I can just draw on the screen. And it was kind of annoying that I always lost the changes. So I'm gonna have a test today and just paint in like another program, so that I can maybe save out like the end results as well, and then post them in our Discord chat too. I think that would be what could be useful. So we'll see how that goes. I just need to have a look at how I can reduce the glare a little bit on my screen today. Wow. Solid question that I asked. Let me just have a quick look again. I think it's fine though. You were basically talking about what to fill the space in. That's totally fine. 100%. That's also the stuff that I enjoy talking about too, so I don't mind. Let's have a look. I don't think we have any questions today, actually. So it's mainly going to be Overpaints. Let me just quickly double check if we have something going on in the anonymous questions, right? Just to make sure. In the meantime, yeah, what's been happening recently? Yesterday we had a monthly meeting with the Beyondextent crew, like all the community builders and myself. We sat together, talked about some of the stuff that we want to do in the future. Got some really cool ideas. I gotta stop revealing too much about those, because sometimes they take longer than we imagined. So, but it's good. We had fun. I think we talked for, I think it was roughly 3 hours or something. About some of the new ideas, some of the things that we can improve in the future. So that was cool. Had a lot of fun with that. And yeah, from my side, I've just been working on some things to simplify our lives, basically. Like I've been doing a little bit of branding, of all that kind of stuff for Beyondextent. So honestly, I've been having a lot of fun. Not too much on the environment art side. I've been kind of slacking on that front, which is fine. Like these other things take priority anyway. So yeah. Haven't been here in a while. Cool to see how quickly the community has grown in the last couple of months. Yeah. I think I mentioned this a couple of times as well. Like, I've been super surprised with just how quickly people are getting in here. And I also like that it's not too many people. I gotta be honest about that too. Like, sometimes when we had like multiple people joining in the day, I was like, oh no, is this gonna be a thing now, or is that gonna fall off again? And I'm honestly quite happy that it quickly falls off, because I honestly like the community that we have now. Like it's nice and tight. Like people love talking to each other. I think it's also good that people don't feel that much pressure yet from like 5,000 people like watching every move, what you say. So yeah, I like it. I've honestly been super surprised by it myself. I don't know, let's have a look. If you're taking chat questions, then I'd like to hear how and if you go about setting personal development goals with your manager at work, especially on the art side. I struggled with that a lot, and how you get, that's how you get career progression in many ways. Oh shit! Maha! Thanks for the resub, man. Damn, 3 months. Hell yeah. Thanks so much for the support, buddy. Yeah, I'm taking chat questions for sure. So let's have a look, right? Like, then I'd like to hear and if you go about setting personal development goals with your manager at work. Let's see. It depends on the kind of structure that's in place, right? Because Ubisoft has a really strict structure of personal development. Like, there's a lot of what would you say? Like, guidelines that you need to sort of abide by, and those guidelines, they basically help you define concrete goals of over the next couple of months to a year, maybe after that. And they help you quantify what you need to achieve. So I think it's important to, if you set those personal development goals, is having them in a way where you can take them as achieved, right? Like, or take them as I've done this and this is the outcome of it. So there's something that you can tangibly see that came out of it. That's really important. Let's have a look, especially on the art side. Yeah, it's a little bit different, right? Like, it's a little bit difficult on the art side because sometimes, usually we just go from personal work to personal work. But what I try to do personally is always try to, especially with the people that I manage, right? I don't want to go in too much detail, but it's like setting goals for them so that they have like a concrete goal at the end of that. Like, for example, someone wants to become, I don't know, I'm just saying something, right? Like an art director, right? In a long while, like that's their ultimate goal, and currently they are a junior. It's building those steps towards where they have all the competencies to become like an intermediate and then a senior, right? And then just basically seeing what's currently missing in their skill set, making a concrete goal out of that, and then building like the building blocks that go in between. I know that this sounds super generic, but I think a lot of times what's missing is just those concrete steps and like those goals that you can achieve. So say, for example, in this case, it could be like a competent knowledge of the terrain tools, right? That could be like one of those goals. And then we can build something out of that. Like, what does it mean to be competent with the terrain tools that we have, for example? Then we can potentially set up a mentorship, like an in-house mentorship with someone that knows all of that stuff. Maybe we do like a personal project that really helps you boost those skills. So it's all about, yeah, breaking it down into smaller steps and then building it up from there, right? I know that might sound like super generic, but that's usually the way that it goes, right? Also, with your personal development skills, like you gotta be able to chop it up into smaller sections, into like tangible goals for you to see the progress. It's a good question though. It's a good question because there's so many facets of it, right? And there might also be a case where you have too many goals, or you want to do too much stuff, and that's also a case where like a manager can jump in and be like, maybe we need to focus a little bit, take it step by step, and focus on one thing first instead of just scattershot approach, right? Hey, Leon, how's it going, buddy? Happy Sunday. Yeah, this week went slow and fast at the same time. It's weird. Oh, I was just about to ask for a follow-up, Bernard. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think it's finding those goals. It's hard for me. Most of the time, my thinking is, okay, gotta do that task. Yeah. Yeah, it is hard. Like, especially from an art side, because everything is so subjective, right? So it's important to really break it down to those tangible goals. The thing that I personally struggle with, especially when I was going through junior and intermediate and all that, all those steps, right? Like the seniority steps, is that I wanted to do a lot of stuff. Like I was always interested in jumping from one thing to another, and you gotta find out if that's fine for you, if that's gonna help you in the long term, right? So say for example, if we flip that around for a second, if you're super interested in I mean, this is a stupid example, right? But like if you're super interested in doing rocks, but then your long-term goal is to be a hard surface artist, there's like a misalignment there, right? I mean, usually it's not that dumb, but yes, it's important to look at it on the long run. Because I've always sort of had this goal of becoming an art director at some point. So I also tend to think about that line of thinking, right? Beyondextent is a good example of that. Like it gives me the opportunity to give feedback and to learn how to teach other people, and develop that skill set, right? Because even though there are opportunities at work, I think if I do that on the side and just focus on that, it gives me a lot more potential for those situations where I can give feedback to people, which is an important skill, is how to give feedback for an art director, right? So, yeah, that's like one of the things that I'm thinking about when I'm looking at my long-term goals, and giving feedback is one of those things. This is me just training up to become that in the future at some point. Who knows if I'll make it? Who knows if I'll be sticking to my guns on that too, right? Maybe I'll switch it up at some point too. It might come down to finding a direct mentor at work to help with that kind of guidance. Yeah, it's also it also depends on what kind of system that you've set up, right? Hey Shampoo! Hey Scott! Welcome to the chat. How's it all going? Yeah, well, what I was saying is, it depends on the kind of system that the company has set up for you, right? So, for example, at Ubisoft, like there is like a really structured system to support you in your growth going forward. But if the company doesn't really have that, then or maybe not as elaborate as you would like it to be, it might be good to start asking people about that, right? Like you were saying, getting like a direct mentor to help you with some sort of guidance. That could be a really good first step, especially if they're more I mean, this is sort of obvious, right? But especially if they're more senior than you, more experienced. And then also try to pick someone that is maybe aligned with what you want to achieve too. Because then that sort of makes sense, right? They have done all the steps that you kind of had to go through to for them to reach where they are at right now, right? So they can give you like all the steps that they did, and maybe give you some good guidance on it too. But yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. I wonder how that works with other studios. I'm thinking back at Frontier, and it wasn't back then. Always take that with a grain of salt, people. It's been a while since I worked there. Company has grown a lot too, so it's a lot different now. But back then, I don't think there was like a set in stone system for like mentors and all that stuff. But we did have people that we could talk to and that we kind of looked up to, and it was a very open atmosphere where you could just ask people for their time, right? So that was a good thing, because you could just talk to the people, ask how they did stuff, and then it would be sort of like this. What's the word? Like, it's very, yeah, I can't think about the word, but it's like a very open and free atmosphere where these systems, these structures almost develop by themselves. Sorta. I think this is something that we talked about yesterday in our meeting as well that we had with the community builders, is that Beyondextent is really good for a community of people that are trying to achieve the same goal, right? Trying to get into the industry and trying to get to grips with all the tools and all that stuff. I think we're missing the other part of it, where we have like a lot of industry professionals that lend their expertise. So it might be the same thing, but it's sort of flipped on its head, if that makes sense. Hey, Rob Shaw, how's it going? So that is actually some of the things that we were also talking about yesterday. Yeah, but good question. I hope that helped a bit. I think for a next step, it could be good to try to find like a direct mentor at work to help you with some sort of guidance, right? I think that's a really good first step. Just get you going and sort of kickstart that whole process. Awesome. Okay. I think it's time that we jump over to some overpaints. Let me do this. Let's have a look. Nice. So this first one is from you, Adam, or Aonard in the chat. Yeah, let's have a look at this, right? I hope that I don't get smacked in the face with my mic. Getting close to finishing it. This is looking good. Let's have a look, right? Because you mentioned something. You've been working on this for a while, that you got feedback on the block out from Moses, but I'm looking to close it, and I've gotten to a point where I'm happy with it. Is there anything that stands out or breaks the thing before I go to animating and posting? Yeah, thanks so much, Adam. Let's have a look here, right? I don't think there's too much. And I saw that you already discussed some of the things that I was going to bring up with this piece. Is that, I don't know if you can see it really well on the stream. But it's these, hold on, where's my, it's the connection between these cables and the floor, right? It feels like there's almost no shadow, or like there's no shadow between them, like connecting them to the floor, which is probably like the main thing that really jumped out in the beginning. And this is gonna be freaking annoying because this is a POM shader, right? So you kind of have to see how that works, or how you can get some shadows in it. Maybe you can fake it or something. So let's, oh god, what's happening? Stabilize me. Contact shadows. So that's probably the main thing that really jumps out from the get-go, is those contact shadows. Oh well, screwed that up. Okay, never mind. Yeah, the cables you can't crack. They've been converted and laid against the floor, sunk in, so it might be the POM. Also, light setup is super fake with a load of fill, so it diffuses a lot of shadow. Yeah, that might be one of the issues, right? That might be one of the issues. Huh. Because it might not be the... It might not be the POM. It might just be your lighting then, that it diffuses a lot of the shadow. Because it's also... I think there was a different screenshot. Let me just quickly have a look in the chat. Never mind. I was looking at like a little table that you have in your scene as well, and the legs on that didn't have any shadow, but they're also on the carpet. So I think it's more of an issue with the lighting then, right? Because if you have like a lot of fill lights here, they will diffuse like all the shadow. Huh. So yeah, that would be the main thing, honestly, for this scene. You got some cool storytelling details going on, like here. They're a little bit heavy-handed, but I can get it. It's kind of cool. It's in my opinion, it might be a little bit weird. Like you have the clash of like these really interesting sci-fi cables, and then this almost feels like it's disconnected from the entire thing. Like it's like, okay, like what is happening with those bloody hands? Is that like zombies being locked up in this door? But then why are these cables here, right? So it feels like it's a bit disconnected from each other. Like you're almost trying to tell two stories at the same time, which I feel isn't really working that well. Because what I liked about this scene is that in the beginning, I mean, it still is, don't get me wrong, it was very up to the viewer what it was sort of trying to tell, right? You had this door at the end of the tunnel, well, at the end of the hallway, and then you had all these cables going through it, and the people that were looking at this scene, they basically had to sort of imagine what was happening in the scene. Like the cables, they add like a cool flare, which is like a nice contrast between so like a contrast between the Victorian style and then the new cables added, which is, it's called just sci-fi, right? Or like modern day or whatever you want to call it. But there's this nice contrast between these two elements, which makes people think. And it's like, okay, why are these cables here? And sometimes it's also fine to not have an explanation of that, right? It's sort of like this. It could be anything at this point. Yeah, because the first thing that could be is like, I don't know, like a crazy workshop or some kind, right? Where these cables are running through the hallway because he came up with a crazy idea. He just took this one door, or like this one area, as like his workshop, and that's where he's conducting like all his experiments. But it's like heavily implied that happens, right? Just with the simple use of cables that just clash again with this contrast between the Victorian and the sci-fi stuff. So I think, like you also said, I may have leaned into the Resident Evil too much. Where if you're not looking for it, it's confusing. Resident Evil being a mansion zombies and hitting a lab, always. Yeah. I don't know. It kind of feels weird that this is here. It's sort of this weird disconnect. Because what I would imagine, or what I would think about is, if you have this element, and if you want to make it a bigger part of the story, then maybe it needs to be reinforced on like other sections. I don't know. Maybe have like some handprints on the wall so that there's like a connection of maybe a person getting hurt or like getting bitten or something, and then they also slumped into like this workshop, and you can kind of see like blood drips on the floor or something like that, right? Something like that builds like a connection between this element, like element 1, and then also like element 2, because then people could maybe make the connection of maybe someone was trying to secure like zombies in that room, right? You see the bloody handprints, but then there's also a connection of them going to their lab, and then maybe they're trying to find a cure or something, right? They were testing on these zombies, and now they had to go back to this room to get a cure, or maybe develop one if they don't have one. So yeah, just making that connection a bit could be interesting. But yeah, what I think is that well, no, I'm not gonna say anything, actually. I'm just gonna leave that up to you, which direction you want to take. Because it's a choice between going almost very heavy-handed or going really subtle when people have to make up their own stories, right? It's very implied, like what might happen. So yeah, like it's a choice. What do you call it? Like choice between what would we call it? Like the heavy-handed approach? I think it's sort of, it's not doing your work justice, like the heavy-handed approach. It implies that you didn't really think about it, which is not what I mean by it at all. Oh, maybe we could call it like direct and indirect or something. So that's basically the choice that you kind of have to make for like the final touches, I think, to create some consistency between the elements that we've created here. Does that make sense, Adam? I know you probably weren't asking for this much, but I think there's a couple of quick wins that you can do with this, right? Like you already have like blood decals anyway for the hands. If you just build a connection in like a couple of places, and then I don't know, have like a little bit of blood on the floor at some locations, that could be enough to make the connection. Cool. But this stuff is looking really cool though, man. Oh yeah, last thing that I wanted to bring this up. If the bookcase isn't in your scene yet, because this is a really nice bookcase, just add it in your scene, man. Like, I don't know, find a spot where you can integrate it a little bit. Maybe you can have it on the side here, right? Like just at the edge, or maybe you can integrate it into a wall section, like here or something. I don't know. It might be too crowded, but it would be a shame to not have that. To not have that in. Oh, is it visible? Okay, never mind. Scrap that. Then it's good. Let's have a look. I'm thinking about toning down the blood decal on the door and adding some on the floor to lead away. Yeah, cool. It's a good idea. I just know what I was trying to do was like, but that doesn't mean it translates, so I'm trying to figure that out. Oh yeah, I get it. Yeah, cool. Okay, nice. Scrap the comment about the bookcase if it's in the shots. Are you good? Because it is a nice bookcase, man. I like it. I like the shader and how it captures the highlight too. Really nice. I do like this shot, just in general. I know that it's kind of stereotypical, right? Because we obviously have like the uh, uh, blue light here, like the blue tones, and then we have like the contrast with like the orange ones. It's a cool shot, even though there's not a stereotypical hero prop or something, unless you count the bookcase as a hero prop. I think it's a nice shot regardless. Cool. Thanks so much for sending this in, Adam. This is really cool. I can't wait to see it released too. It's gonna be good. Alright, let's have a look. Who was next? Next up we have Leon. Let's have a look. Which one is that? Yeah, there we go. Make sure I add a new layer this time. Need to keep hydrated. Don't forget about that. Yeah. Let me... Oh. Let me create a new view so I can see it on my other monitor too. Because there is a little bit of difference between how they look. Cool, cool. Hey, Jacob. Thanks for the hydrate, man. Still laughing about that auto-generated letter? Oh, man, I haven't looked at that yet. It's like a breakup letter, right? Saw that this morning. Oh god. This is good. Dear Jispar, to me, you are like a very sad werewolf, and I'm not sure that I need a very sad werewolf in my life right now. Things started to go wrong when I caught you turning with my brother. What? Ah, this is good. I need to read the rest of it. Okay, anyway. Oh, maybe... Oh god, no. That's a horrible suggestion. Maybe you need to add that to your ArtStation post, like all the way at the bottom. So it's like a little Easter egg for people that scroll all the way through. Anyway, this is cool though. This is really nice. I know that we talked about a lot of these things before, right? Because we do have a mentorship together. So I'm kind of just looking at like all the improvements. There's a lot of good stuff in here, man. Because just to give some to be open, what we talked about in the mentorship, it was more about like the final touches, right? Especially when it comes to the paper and making it look like it's old paper. I think that was like a real big important step in this scene. So it's really cool to see elements like these, where you can see that it's not just straight pages, but there's like little nice wrinkles on the pages. It's really cool. And then just a subtle detail of having this one page deviate from the rest of the pages, right? Stuff like that is really cool. I wonder I wonder if you can push it even more, where this page, for example, just goes up and just ends here, because it makes the difference between the two a little bit more more emphasized, right? Because now this is almost super subtle that it's almost not noticeable. So this also depends on what kind of texture that you have on the second page, right? If there's something there, if you map that in, or if you, well, basically if you need to hide it, that's a big question, right? Because also it would be cool to do something like this, something that really pushes it a little bit more. Yeah, I really like all the touches that you've done to the paper. For example, this touch is also a good example. Just a little breakage on the seam, which just implies that this map has been in heavy use for a long while. Really cool. Onto that topic, I still think that this one is too straight. Like, because all the rest of it looks so nice and like wobbled, is that it makes this one almost stand out. Like this edge is almost, well, it is still too straight. So set that here. Straight. But that is only because you did such a good job on all the other sections, right? Like you see these little things, they add so much to like all these older pieces of paper. Yeah, this is such a cool scene. You can almost dive into like all the individual things that I've written here, right? There's a lot of stuff you can probably go through. This is cool. Like the map itself, also really neat. Like good detail there. I like it. I like that you also added like different names, because that's something that we talked about in the mentorship, is that you had this defined zone in the middle where that was basically their hunting ground, and then the red zones could be like other people's hunting grounds, so that they had like multiple hunters scattered all over the city and they all had their predefined zones. So it's, what that is doing is that it's more implying that this is a collective of hunters, right? So that there's not just one, like a lone soul hunter, but it's like a collective of hunters that are getting together and trying to chase down like maybe multiple werewolves or something like that, right? That's also, it's very subtly implied, but like that's also where the sigil comes in too, right? So we have some of these elements that are hinting at there's more than one person doing this. Also like a stack of letters that's doing the same thing, right? It doesn't have to be super implied all of the time, but like these elements of communication, this sigil, like they do a lot of that work for you. It took some time to get the map in place where it could add storytelling and still zone out all the parts where they crossed out before. Yeah, that was a thing that was always going to be difficult about it, right? Because there was so much that you were trying to tell within this map that it's a balance between having too much and going overboard on the storytelling, and still having it readable and like really nicely, I would just say it, like really nicely composed for storytelling, so that if you looked at this, you could kind of get what it's trying to do. And that's maybe something that we can strengthen. Like I feel like the composition is at a really good place right now, but my first intuition was that I don't really know what they're gunning for just yet. So, maybe we need to, I don't know what this would be, right? But maybe we need to add something here, like the last sighting, like last werewolf sighting or something, right? Last like last sighting, question mark. I don't know, because I don't really know what the answer to this is just yet, but I do know that it's not really that apparent from, hold on, let me zoom into all those details, right? Because maybe I'm also not doing it justice by not having a look at everything. So we got full moon, Wolfpack sided. Wolfsbane. Quicksilver. Yeah. Alright. Oh, children vanished from Royal Military Asylum. That's cool. Oh, gunman found dead. Okay. Yeah, some of... I'm thinking... I'm thinking that... maybe we can increase the contrast between the elements. Let me expand on that thought a little bit later. Let's just see what you said, Leon. The newspaper article... that will be more readable in another angle. Suggests that tonight something is happening at the circle area. So maybe just tonight underlined at the circle area. Yeah, that could be it. Could be a good start. Or like I mean, maybe that's all you need, right? So like a little tonight and then like an exclamation mark or something. It could be good because then it's also pulling attention to it again. My thought before about like maybe increasing the contrast is this is basically going against like old papers and like how worn they are over time. But the reason why I'm going to suggest the following is because you have all this gray area here and then there's like a gray note in between, right? So maybe there's a way that we can increase... oh god, that's a horrible line. Maybe there's a way that we can increase the readability of this by just making or upping the intensity of the font on it. Or we can reverse it, and maybe what we can do is decrease the strength of some of the background elements. Like, it just has to be really subtle, right? But just making these little snippets stand out a little bit more could be could be a really interesting thing to do. And it's mainly this one, because this one stands out because it's backing against the red. This one stands out good, even though you have to zoom in quite far to read what it's saying. Maybe make the text a bit more central and have like a little bit of a white border around it so that it stands out, right? Yeah, you don't run into that with the other ones. It's just for this one. You probably want to increase the contrast. Also because it's the one that's closest to you too, right? Increase contrast. And this is all minor stuff, right? Like some people have said, well, like a lot of people have said actually, the storytelling in this is on point. I like all the elements here. Like, it's already super good. So the stuff that I'm pointing out is really just the details of it. Let's have a look through the chat as well. I love how the hunter has a really nice teacup. Hell yeah! It's a fancy hunter. I can try that, or maybe pull up the geo at the lower edge to get some cast shadow underneath. I don't think it's an issue where it's not really that is an issue that there's like a thing there. It's just what's on it, right? So the text needs to be like a little bit more readable, I think, or more contrasty compared to the rest. At least that's what I'm thinking. You just put another red zone under it? I don't think so, because it's really defined along sort of natural borders here, right? Like the different territories that we were talking about before. I mean, it could definitely be an option, but then you kind of have to make it a new zone, and then it's gonna take away from the contrast of this red circle as well. Yeah, really cool stuff. I think what you could do, because I know that we've been going off topic a little bit here, but I think your initial question was more about the lighting, right? And maybe that's where we can focus it a little bit more. But it would almost be a shame to take away from all those details, because my initial thinking is that pick a color. So stick with green. So my initial thought would be that you almost want to focus on this kind of section, right? And make the lighting like really focused on that. And then have the fall off, like have darker sections here. But then maybe you need to expand a little bit here, because this is also like a really cool storytelling bit that you did. Maybe, yeah, maybe, I don't know, having like a light focused around this area, because this isn't really that important. Like the same goes for this. So maybe trying to focus it a little bit more could be a thing that you could try. Or yeah, just increasing the contrast, right? I know that I've been talking about contrast a lot in this one. But I think it could help to increase the contrast a little bit between this section especially, right? And then the table itself, increase that just a little bit. But again, it has to be very subtle, right? Because I think the main components here are already good. It's just about pushing it a little bit. So what is that? Light focus area. I think for this one you have to see how it looks, because it's hard to estimate, and also the lighting setup that you have currently, it's hard to estimate what you're gonna lose if you focus more on this, because there are like a lot of cool elements around the scene, right? So try to push it a little bit, but not too much. Maybe the two zones have been expanding in the meeting tonight at that point, or a clash or something between the pack. But that's sort of a different story, right? I mean, it's a cool idea, but I think that's where it deviates from just the hunter kind of thing. It's not. I don't think it's about like werewolves fighting each other. I don't know. Might be wrong though. This is really cool, Leon. I like this scene a lot, especially like some of the people in the chat as well. Like really nice storytelling elements. There's a lot of stuff to look at. This is one of those scenes where you could open it and you could kind of discover like little tidbits, and oh cool, there's like, oh, the full moon here, then there's like a human found dead, there's like a wolf pack, and there's like tons of research here. What does that sigil mean, right? You can kind of keep digging into this scene, which is really cool. Good stuff, Leon. Good stuff. Nearly there. This is awesome. And same thing for this, right? Like last thing here is it's very subtle, but I like this. It's like just additional elements here. Let me do that in red instead. This is like I think it's an interesting area also just from a lighting perspective. Like, the main focus is not drawn to it, but it's one of those things that if you keep looking at the scene, you will notice this. And it just adds to like, it adds like a couple of nice additional details. Yeah. Cool stuff, man. Thank you so much for sending it in as well. It's gonna be awesome. I mean, it already is. Amazing. Yeah, this is nice. Cool. Okay. And then we have the last one for today. From Tobias. You send it in right before the deadline. Like, I think you were like 3 seconds before I started streaming or something, before the streaming announcement. So you were right on time. Let's have a look here. And your question was about wondering if anyone has any good ideas for props and stuff I can add on the right hand side of the scene. Originally, I was gonna do a camping bed and make it some sort of archaeological person that was living here, but I've been giving feedback that it would be better to make this more of a workspace. Struggling to think about what I can fill the space with instead. So yeah, this is interesting, right? Because I do like that there's a combination of the elements, not gonna lie. I don't think it needs to be either or. It can be a case where pen again. Can be a case where you can just combine the two things, right? Where that's the stuff you're already doing anyway. Is you have some work equipment here, and then you have like a little section here that is more separate for like a sleeping / storage area. Let's have a look. I need to move this to my second screen as well. Whoop. Because I think what you can do is just build on top of the stuff that you already have. Let's have a look back. Oh god. They're making a new layer. Okay. Oh, Leon dropping in. I also think it could be both, kind of a field lab. They live there and then they have their research equipment with them. Maybe a few of those really cheap stick together shells where they can store artifacts and other finds. That's a cool idea. Digging and cleaning materials, shovels and picks, etc. That's also an interesting idea. Oh, that could be interesting. Like if you have these cleaning materials anyway. Brush. If you have those cleaning materials anyway, you could push the contrast between maybe having this area be a little bit more clean than the other area, right? So they did a little bit of cleaning here. I know that this sounds really stupid, but it's gonna push the contrast between areas. I think contrast is a favorite word of the day. Because that's the thing that's really cool about this scene. There's this really nice imbalance already, and I think if you're gonna add more props here, there's like a lot of space to rest in like other sections. But you could maybe put like a prop here and there, but I wouldn't fill this up completely because this is gonna be the main focal point. Just from a contrast between the amount of detail that's there, right? That's also one of the things that you can use is putting more stuff in a space where you want people to look at, because people are automatically attracted to that, right? And again, it pushes the contrast between. But what I would probably do is, yeah, have like a little bit of a work section here, right? Like you already have yeah, maybe like a research kind of thing. Like I think it was Leon that messaged it. Let's have a look. Yeah, Leon messaged meant, like Leon was talking about some research equipment here where you could have I don't know, like an additional table, or like a shelving with like, I don't know, an artifact here and there, and then maybe like a microscope or something, right? I know that these are not easy props to make, but they could be really interesting, where you would have like research papers here, and then this is where they do like all their experimenting. I think you might have to move some stuff over, right, so that they can walk in between the tables too. So don't put them right beside each other. But what I'm trying to get to with this is that you have the separation of spaces, right? So this is work, and then this section, I would probably move the bed here or something, is like personal. So then maybe you can have a shelf, right? Like people were saying, like a little bit of a shelf area here, so that they can store their stuff in it, or like store artifacts in it too. And then have like, you know, some boxes, a little bit of a shelf. So this becomes like storage, because it makes sense to have storage so close to the workspace, right? So that is storage. And then you can see that this space is filling up really quickly. What you could potentially also do, I'm currently looking at the lights here. Let's have a look. I think we need to flip them. Oh, let me keep up with the chat as well. Bikes, welcome to the chat. I'm a bit late. Things like chemicals, microscope, test devices, pots full of earth samples. Yeah, exactly. That could be really nice. It'd be really nice to do some of that stuff. You have to keep in mind that those prompts take a lot of time to develop, so try to make the most of it. Try to, if you're building, if you're gonna make an artifact or something like that, maybe you could have like a broken pot or something, right? It doesn't have to be something super fancy, but you could have, the reason why I say a broken pot is you could have the broken pieces, but you could also build a full pot. So build a full pot first, and then you just break it up with, I don't know, with like a fracture tool, or you can just cut it yourself. Make separate pieces out of it, and then you have like a bunch of artifacts that don't look the same, but they're all reusing kind of the same thing, right? You can apply that to like a lot of stuff. So it doesn't have to be a pot, but it can also be like different artifacts too, like maybe a spear with a spearhead and maybe chunks of it or something like that. Because if you want to do like a lot of intricate props, it's going to just take you a lot of time, right? So make sure that you have a lot of reuse built into that as well. Let's have a look. Are the yellow tapes going to make sense in the scene? Wait, hold on. What's this? Oh, like yellow tape for only like authorized people to get in. I don't think you need that for a scene like this, because this is gonna be secluded anyway. You would probably have that outside, right? There's like a checkpoint or something. If this is in like a touristy area, for example, you would have that ad at the checkpoint, like at the entrance of the thing, rather than inside of it, because you're already at the inner sanctum, and this is only for archaeologicals or like people that have gone through those checkpoints anyway. For context, I started working from this concept, but because there's no humans in mind, I wanted to add story another way. That's why I'm trying to tell the story of an archaeologicalist. Yeah, I think you're on a good path though. It's just you need to define what kind of person he is, right? Obviously, if you only have a bed here and maybe have like a little rucksack, like you already implied that he's not carrying too much weight. He might not been there for too long. But yeah, maybe stuff like a little table here with some books on it, right? So even though he sleeps there, you would have like this little bedside table. You would have like a book on it, maybe like a coffee mug or something, right? So you're just implying that he's not only working there, but he's living there. Like he's drinking, eating, sleeping. He's doing all this kind of jazz. Like he's all doing it in here. So yeah, it's just about defining these spaces. So work, and then personal, and then storage area. You can already see it kind of coming together, right? What I was about to say with these lights, because they kind of took my attention for a second, is right now these lights are shining outwards of the frame. So what this is doing is you're trying to pull attention to some of the darker areas, which I get. But what you're doing is you're pushing people outside of the frame. On this side, it's not that big of a deal because you're creating this barrier, right? So people stay within the frame. But what I would potentially do is have a light here and having it shine to pedestal, and do I don't know, maybe do the same thing here, right? Like a little tripod boy, and then you have like this little light, and then it's shining towards the pedestal instead of away from it. With this scene, you might want to be careful with the amount of lights too, because I don't think you need too many lights, because you have these nice lights and then you have like these things casting light. So yeah, I honestly don't think you need too much. Probably the only area that I would maybe suggest adding something is here, right? So you have like a light casting here, and then that overlaps with this one, because this is an entire dark corner. So maybe pushing them more into the frame could help a bit here. But on this side, I don't think you really need to add anything, because you have this nice subtle contrast between this light that's coming outside of these gaps, which is really cool, by the way. I really like that element. Yeah, some good AC vibes. Mm, yeah, and then if you have like storage boxes like these, right? What else do we have there? Looking at my second screen, I think there's like a storage box here, which is really cool. Try to make the most use of it. Just have, I don't know, have just one of them here, like a little storage box that's over here. Right, it's all about reusing things. And then maybe you have like another one here. Just doing the same thing. Just make it a little bit more dynamic. Don't have them all just set straight. Do the same thing here, potentially. Just fill up the scene a little bit. Yeah, and then slowly but surely, into a really nice and balanced scene. Just get rid of my scribbles here. Awesome! Yeah, thanks everyone for the input. That was really good. I hope that made sense, Tobias. I hope that was helpful. I know it's a lot sometimes, but usually, like, all the stuff is just like fairly small stuff apart from creating new assets, right? That's the biggest suggestion here, and that's also the thing that you were looking at. But the rest of it, you already have all the components here. I think you just have to be careful with the amount of light that you're trying to push into your scene, and maybe focus a little bit more on contrasting it more to the middle of your scene. But yeah, like, let's have a look. Let's have a quick look, right? I know that we've been talking a lot about this scene, because I wanted to have a quick look at what's already going really well. Let's remove this layer, make it a little bit visible. You did a great job with the already existing composition, right? That's good. That's pushing, like, all these elements are pushing you towards it. I like the balance here between the light is pushing you there, but then it's also being blocked by this barrier that you have in place, which is kind of interesting. Like, it's keeping this area contained where it needs to be, which is really cool. The main things that we just need to focus on a little bit more is these elements that take away from this framing. So maybe make these lights a little bit subtle, a little bit more subtle. Or I would potentially maybe even think about making these like standard hieroglyphs for two reasons. Like, they distract a lot from the main focus, but also, and this is my opinion, so take this with a grain of salt, they kind of look cheesy. Like, it's like, oh, let's make it sci-fi, so let's add emissive to it, right? It's kind of that way of thinking, which you don't need. I think in some cases you could have them, but it doesn't need to be everywhere. Yeah. Sometimes it's a little bit heavy-handed, but these planks definitely help. I think in this case you don't really need them because you got these nice pillars forcing your way to the middle anyway. And what I would potentially do is think about the composition, like the framing of it, right? Let's see, how can I quickly do this? I know maybe the composition is not final yet, but maybe something more like this. Could be interesting. I wouldn't cut it off like all the way at the bottom, right? I do want to show a bit more of the workspace. But I think if you want to do something like that, and you wanna keep the 16 by 19 framing that you did, well, that's pretty standard. Then you might have to expand the frame just a little bit and then move the camera over. So maybe, I don't know, maybe do something like this, right? But you can see that we're losing out on some of the information already. But this can be interesting. Because you still have a little bit of the dead space here, which you kind of need, right? Because this is going to be a full-on section. But what this is also doing is, first of all, you can see that I used the grid here to pull the focus on this. Because the reason why I say this is this felt like it was almost in the middle of the composition, but it felt awkward. Like, it doesn't feel good if something is almost exactly in the middle of something. We love stuff that's offset. Unless you're trying to convey a feeling of stability or grandeur or something like that. That's where like a really symmetrical composition can come into place. So it's one of those things that you use in specific cases. So for example, if you were portraying the entrance of like an old Egyptian temple or something like that, right? That's where like a central composition could really help you out, because you're trying to convey the scale of it and like the what is it, like the rigidity and the stability of it, right? It feeds your composition into the thing that you're trying to sell. But we don't need it here. Putting in the rule of thirds increases the dynamic contrast between the orb and the camp so much. I really think it's worth even you need to expand the scene to the right. Yeah, and honestly, what you can do in this case, right? So let's say, I don't know. Let's do something like this again, right? The only thing that you would probably need to do is just move some of the elements over a little bit, not too much. And then these pillars, you probably have them going up way beyond the frame anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But it does help with how it's gonna look. Yeah, let's see. I wonder if I can... Yeah. Just gonna add this in here, something small, right? Oh, let's have a look. Yeah, I was trying to do some, like a similar composition to the original concept, but I agree it would be nicer to use a rule of thirds. Yeah, I definitely agree. Sometimes it's okay to, I mean, in a lot of cases, it's okay to deviate from the concept. Because a concept is there to give you a really solid starting point, right? But it doesn't mean that everything is all right. Like, if there's things that you can improve, just feel free to deviate from it too. You could still do the stability thing in this scene, but you would have to have a position at the bottom of the stairs and have an orb in the center. Yep, exactly. You could do it that way. make an interesting secondary shot too, I guess. 100%. Yeah, that could be cool. That could be cool. Because that's the big thing that you already have in your scene, right? Is the color contrast. It works so well already. So yeah, just I mean, if you have all the pieces there anyway, might as well make some nice secondary shots out of it too. Sweet. Let me just finish this thing up, right? So roughly what we're doing there is we're using the rule of thirds. Roughly, right? You can see that they're not spaced evenly. You get the idea. Rule of thirds. Great. Yeah, really great scene already, Tobias. It's really good. Lots of solid fundamentals already in this. So I'm looking forward to what you're going to do with this, man. It's going to be awesome. Hell yeah. Oh yeah, and thank you so much for sending in your picture too. I really appreciate it. I love doing this. Awesome. Okay, let me grab a drink. Oh yeah. Yeah, again, thanks everyone for sending in those images. That's really amazing. Thank you. Need to replace a lot of the blockout stuff still. Thanks all for everyone who contributed to the feedback. Yeah, exactly. Like this is awesome. Seeing you guys pitch in too, sharing ideas, was really good. I think, honestly, that's probably the biggest benefit of a community like this, right? It's just having everyone pitch in and share ideas, because sometimes, I mean, a lot of the times that's where you get the good ideas from, is when everyone starts to pitch in and just add some random things, and you can just pick from the coolest ideas out of the bunch and just integrate them. It's awesome. So yeah, thanks everyone for the feedback as well. That was awesome. So much good shit out of it too. An hour and 20 minutes. It's not too bad with 3 feedbacks. It's pretty good, I would say. All right, but I'm gonna be heading off, guys. Still need breakfast. It sounds so ridiculous. It's almost like 2:30 now, but I still need breakfast. But this was awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for sending in those pictures and sending those good suggestions in the chat too. And then, yeah, also Jacob and Tobias, thanks for the follow. I really appreciate that too. Yeah. So I wish everyone a great Sunday. And yeah, happy creating. Talk to you in the next one. See ya.